Okay, it looks like we're going to get a bonus round out of this deal. It blew the oil gasket again, so we're assuming that the relief valve is stuck. And on the forums every month, there's some kind of problem with the oil pump, so we might as well take the opportunity to figure out what's wrong with this one and see how it goes. It's hard to hold this and try to turn these off, so it's best just to use an impact to get them off. This one's got the square plug in it like they did in '69. This is a 55-year-old oil pump. I'm hoping I don't round this off. Yeah, there we go. So, the last one that we blew up was also 55 years old, and I tested the spring and it was still within spec. So this should come off here fairly easy. I may have to give it a love tap. Okay, I'm not saying this is going to work, but I had to try to find something that was going to... We want to put something on the top of this piston, but you can't make it too big or you'll break the seat that it sits up against. So I'm going to put this in here and see if I can pry it and move that piston. Okay, I think we're on. See, it dropped down past the seat, but it's right size. Well, now it's too far down. I can't get on it. Okay, let me get this other one too. I had two of these things laying over here. Okay, now I'll lay this one on top of that one and see if I can pry on it. This is going to be a little tricky, but nothing's easy, right? I actually need a... Okay, get on. Oh, why you fall over like that? There you go. Okay. I think it's on there. Now, let's see if we can pry that piston down a little bit. Oops. By the way, this is not easy. I didn't want you to think it was easy, because it's not. Trying to break this thing loose is a nightmare. That's not exactly how we want, but let's try it. That feels like I'm getting some leverage. Boy, that baby's welded in there, isn't it? Anyway, as far as this video goes, let's say this was a fail and I can't get it done. Okay, I've given up on the old cap that I couldn't get the piston free. Let's face it, I've met my match. We had this once before on the gold car had sat outside for 28 years and it was froze up too. And this one, I don't think it's been started maybe in the mid-80s, 40 years ago. So it was froze up too. But I couldn't unstick it. Sometimes you can, but I failed. But I did have this one that's got the right casting number on it, that's proper for the car. I had to repaint it because I had already stripped the paint off of it. The owner wanted me to leave the orange paint on the body and the bolts and the cap just because he likes that kind of stuff. And the other problem was the relief spring was a little under the minimum spec. The minimum spec was 14.85 pounds at a prescribed length, and this one had 14 and a half, so it maybe would have bypassed around 40 psi instead of 45 to 55, which would be the spec on a wedge. So, but some people have problems putting these things together, so I thought I ought to go through this just to show you that it's impossible to screw this up. You can almost screw it up by trying to put in the piston backwards for the relief. This is what relieves the pressure when it's cold in the morning, and it gets up to a psi determined by this spring, and then it releases. And this, if you try to do this backward, but you won't do that. You're going to put it in there right. So I'm just using motor oil because that's what your car runs on. So put a little oil in here. You want to oil everything up real good. Not only because, but you don't want it to be rusting if it, because it might be a while before you put it in there. And then I stick my little finger in there. I had some oil on this, but make sure it's sliding good. Your fingers may not be as small as mine, but they do have a magnet for that. So it's sliding nice and freely. If you can't get it out, a magnet will help you. It'll work. But I just use my pinky. And then the spring goes in, and then there's a gasket underneath the cap. Now it's ready. Now the pump itself, there's 3 O-rings, and there was a guy on one of the forums that couldn't figure out these O-rings, but there's no way to screw this up. There's only one this big, and that one goes there, and these two are kind of pretty close together. One goes here, and one goes here, but that one, you can see, fits. And if you try to put this one in there, it just really doesn't fit. So that means that it must go here. I try to roll this on to where I don't get it kind of cocked, you know what I mean? Kind of roll it on equally. And if you forget that, the hole in the block is, I think, 875, and this is about 873. So this is where it sucks the oil up. If you forget this O-ring, it can suck air right past that, and you're not going to like that, because you're not going to be able to get any oil pressure. It's going to want to suck this air instead of sucking that oil up out of the pan. So don't do that. Don't forget that. Now the rotor, you've got an inner and an outer. Oil them up good. And I put a little oil in here too, just because, that thing's going to be in there driving it. And you probably can't do this in California because this oil on your hands would probably kill you. But if you're in any of the other states, it'd be okay. And you also want to oil up that hole. We might as well oil all this in here before we stick that in there, just because. Any place there's metal to metal contact, or really you just need oil everywhere in here, because this raw cast iron is going to be rusting 5 minutes after you clean it up. It's going to try to rust on you. Okay, so we've got everything oiled up. Now we want to get in here and turn this and get the oil all around in there. Get that hole oiled up good. Then you want to oil this thing up. Had a little rust on it, and I soaked it in evaporust, and still a little bit of tint there. Can't really tell which way it was. Sometimes you'll see some marks on it, you know. And that goes like that. Then your two O-rings. Try not to roll them, try to keep them on there straight. All right, so all we do now is put the top on. Obviously, it only goes one way. You can't screw this up. But there's no mysteries here. This is all real easy to understand. And that's it. So don't be scared of your oil pump. If you need to work on it, you know how to put it back together, even if you find it in a pile of parts. There's something I should have said here. When you put this top on this oil pump, before you torque these down, this is not on dowel pins. This just bolts on. So if you put it on, see it's got some slack there. So you don't want to put it on. Can you see how that bolt, this bolt hole is not lined up with this bolt? Can you see that little thing there? And then if it's over this way, do you see what I'm talking about? So line, before you torque it, and the book spec on these is 10 foot-pounds. Before you tighten it up, just line up those bolt holes real good. Just look down in there and make sure you don't see a big, lip sticking out in there. Line it up real good, and then you can crank it down kind of thumb tight to hold it while you're torquing it down. But just line that up good.
I think this one's supposed to be a pretty good shop.
We're trying to put a fuel pump on now, and that'll complete our fuel system. And then we can take our hillbilly portable system off of there. Okay, we got the fuel system complete. We got rid of our hillbilly fuel system. The reason we were having to jump it with a screwdriver was the neutral safety switch was bad. First we put on a starter relay, but that didn't fix it. But we were testing all the lights the other night, and the backup lights didn't come on. When I was reading the factory service manual today, trying to figure out why this didn't start, and it listed the neutral safety switch as one of the things, and it tells you the middle pole on this year model is the neutral safety switch, and the two outer poles are the backup lights. Well, if the backup lights aren't working, then that means that the switch is bad. So, put a new switch in it, it works, everything's fine. We had already changed the starter relay because we thought it was that, but it turned out it wasn't that. So now we think everything's hunky-dory, and we're gonna give it another shot. Hit it, Robin, let's see. Greg, you may need to give it another shot. I just gave it a little bit. I know Robin says I don't put enough in there.
Never do.
We should have some fuel in the floats from the other day because when we had that other fuel system on here, so I was hoping it would take off on that. But bear in mind, we've only ran this a few seconds since we got it going. This is it. You've seen everything we've seen. All right, try it again. That sounded good. Yeah, that sounded good. Yeah. I don't know what that is. Might be the water. No, I don't know if it'll do that, but you can try it.
None of mine ever would.
Well, it did. I take that back. Give us a beep beep, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. Well, it didn't dump all the oil on the floor, and I can't believe it idled down like it did on this 40-year-old carburetor rebuild. Of course, I can't even believe this thing even runs, but well, I don't know what to say. It's just been wonderful. We still haven't got the red lines on it. That's a lot of work for an old man like me, you know. But wow, it's been great. It may have took a few days, but we're all happy.